All right. Good evening, everybody. Happy Monday. So, today we're going to be talking about what it takes to be a successful writer. And we're going to be looking at this from an interesting, unique perspective. At least I hope it is, but I think it is. So, and I hope you do too. So, all right, let's get into it. To be a successful writer, think like a criminal. Now, I know that sounds a bit odd, so I'm going to explain what I mean. Now, to be a successful writer, it requires you to think outside the box. And the moment you chose to be a writer, you decided to reject the status quo and live life on your own terms. You took the leap into the unknown, and now you're navigating dangerous waters in a sense where the failure rate is pretty high, but the rewards are vast. With the level of risk involved, most people would rather play it safe and go work for someone else. But not you. Much like society's criminals, you're one of the few with the cojones to go after what you want and carve out your own path. Now, let's get into the key points to why I think it would be beneficial for you as a writer to think like a criminal. And let's start with the most important thing, yeah? Your mind is your most powerful weapon. You are now part of a tribe of people who aim to get paid with their mind and not their time. Writers brainstorm projects, criminals cultivate capers and schemes. As a writer, you earn a living based on the success of each project you pursue. As a criminal, you earn a living based on the success of each potential crime you commit. And every time a writer puts pen to paper, there is a very strong likelihood that that project will fail, statistically speaking. Every time a criminal embarks on a mission, they may end up dead or in jail. And a little side note, many of the most memorable writers were criminals prior to becoming authors, and they know firsthand what it's like to adapt to a situation in which their back is against the wall. Just a little example, you got Eddie Bunker, you got William Burroughs, you got Charles Bukowski, and there's others that escape me at the moment, but there's quite a few authors who used to be criminals prior to them becoming authors, which I find to be very interesting, but it makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Now, part of the writer's journey is being forced to use your mind to solve complex problems. This builds character and in turn will help you become a better writer. If writers want to juggle survival with the pursuit of their craft, they have to be resourceful, resilient, and adaptable. Now, if you want to become a great writer, you need to cultivate the same skills that make a successful criminal, which are those three that I just mentioned. There's more skills, obviously, but I think those three skills will give you a significant advantage in pursuing this very difficult, complex, and treacherous, oftentimes treacherous career. Now, adopting this criminal mentality essentially means that regardless of any career setbacks, you will find a way to make it work. Now, it this career, both of them actually, given that there's no solid blueprint, the writers and the criminals of society must learn the unteachable skill of thinking under pressure. This is not a skill that you can teach or be taught by someone. You cannot learn this from someone. You have to learn this yourself as you go through each situation. You have to be put under pressure and you have to learn how to think under pressure. Criminals have to do this all the time. There are constant situations arising in their career in which they are forced to quickly think on their feet and adapt to the situation. Writers, same thing. You might be on a project or in a writer's room. The show might get canceled. You might get fired. You may be getting taken advantage of in a career situation, and you have to figure out how to navigate these treacherous waters, and you got to do it fast sometimes. So there's only one way to learn that skill, and it's through experience. Now, this brings us to our next point. Perfect segue, actually. Be bold and take action. If you want to be a great writer, You have to have an interesting life. That's something that's not talked about as often as it should be, that you have to live an interesting life if you want to be a great writer. Now, this interesting life that I'm talking about does need to be integrated with consistent periods of deep focus. You got to balance those two things out. In order to write about characters who take action, enter conflict, and transform as a result, you have to know what this feels like in your own life. Nobody in our society knows more about taking action and entering conflict than criminals, except maybe cops. While their lives feature the everyday boredom we all face, the most proactive criminals encounter obstacles and endure intense situations on a regular basis. Now, while I'm not encouraging anyone to engage in any illegal behavior, I hope that goes without saying, but let me just say it for those who don't know that. You should be taking a certain amount of risk in your own life. Let me give you an example. Screenwriter Terrence Winter was on track to make partner at a prestigious law firm in New York when he quit being a lawyer and moved to Los Angeles to pursue screenwriting. Now, this is an example of the kind of positive risk which forces you to transform. I think if you're going to make the bold move of becoming a writer, you have to continue to make bold moves if you want to be successful. The writers who go down in history are memorable in part because they took risks in their own lives. Terrence Winter was told he would fail multiple times, but he forged ahead and he became one of the most legendary writers in television history. And this brings us to our next and final point. No risk, no reward. There's a siren outside. Excuse me for just one moment. Whoever's in their way, move. Like, let them go. Okay, there we go. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Great timing. No risk, no reward. That's where I was. No risk, no reward. Writers and criminals are two sides of the same coin. The majority of them are outsiders, seeking respect and recognition, and only a handful achieve the glory of mainstream success. With writers and criminals, it seems like most of them are outsiders, but a few of them become the ultimate somebodies in American culture. I find that utterly fascinating, and I think that's the shared struggle between writers and artists essentially and criminals. Because most writers will endure years of failure before they ever see the fruits of their labor. And whether it be financial pressure or out of sheer disillusionment, many writers buckle under the weight and they throw in the towel. In order to persevere as a writer, you cannot allow yourself to be molded by societal expectations. You cannot allow those expectations to dictate your life. This is where thinking like a criminal comes into play, as you have to rebel against those who want to put you in your place. Society needs great writers, and sometimes that simply requires a willingness to not listen to other people. You don't need anyone's permission to become a writer. And I want you to ask yourself this question. Ask yourself, would a criminal ask permission to start committing crimes? No, of course they wouldn't. Why would they? That would defeat the whole purpose, I feel like. If you really want to be a writer, you're going to make it happen one way or another, and you're not going to ask anybody's permission. Not dads, not moms, not your teachers, not your friends, not your priest, nobody. Do not ask. You can ask for advice and guidance from people who you trust, absolutely. But do not make the mistake of thinking that you need anybody's permission to become a writer. You do it. You give yourself permission to do it. In the same way, a criminal would give themselves permission to go rob a bank. Unless you're like in a crew or a gang and you need to get the big homie's permission. Like, that's one thing, but no, yeah, you go out and you do it yourself. This brings us to our conclusion. We're about to wrap this bad boy up, okay? This reminds me of a Nipsey Hussle quote, and I don't listen to hip hop very much anymore, as I spoke about in a previous video. This reminds me of a Nipsey Hussle quote that's always stuck with me, though. And it's fuck living basic, we're taking risks. Writers and criminals both shape culture and inspire others to carve out their own unique path. Writers have a deep yearning to live an adventurous life, while criminals have a desire to tell their story to the world. And a handful of both parties do exactly that. And it's interesting, it's almost like both parties are kindred spirits in a way, and each have an unlived life that the other one is living. If you're reading this and you truly feel it is in your destiny to become a writer, nothing I've said or am saying here is going to make a difference. This is just a little, for those individuals who are going to do it no matter what, this is just a little extra fuel for you to stop scrolling online, whether it be on Medium or Substack or YouTube, and to get back to your writing. But if you're feeling hesitant about making the jump, trepidatious, fearful, what have you, if you're afraid of what your family and friends might think, let me ask you a question. And I want you to think about this over the next few days or weeks or months, or however long it takes you. In 10 years from now, when you're working a corporate or blue collar job and you're driving home from work daydreaming about what could have been, about where you would be if you had just given this writing thing a shot, do you think you'll be happy with the decision you've made? Do you think you'll be happy that you played it safe? Think about that. And I'm not going to answer that question for you. That's up to you. But I really want you to think about that. A lot of people take the safe route, you know? There's nothing necessarily wrong with it. I say that with a question mark, though. Is there something wrong with it? I'm not sure. Is it wrong to cheat yourself out of the adventure that your life could have been? Perhaps in some ways it is. But if it's not really for you and you don't do it, that's not wrong. But we'll talk about that another time. But like I said, a lot of people take the safe route. And oftentimes it's because somebody talked them into it. There's been a lot of talk lately from, respectable, trustworthy individuals, but they're saying don't follow your passion. Now, I'm not saying be stupid. I'm not saying bite off more than you can chew. Don't get yourself in a wreck. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're in over your head. But to tell most people that they shouldn't follow their passions and play the safe route, I know there's more nuance to it than that, but I just think that I think we all really need to ask ourselves one fundamental question, and this is the meta question that branches off from the question I just asked you, and it's this. Think about this. Is playing it safe really what life is all about? Ask yourself that question. Is playing it safe really what life is all about? I don't think so, but everyone has to ask themselves that question. And it's not just I don't think so. No, it's not. Don't be stupid. You got to be strategic. You got to be smart. You can't put yourself in situations, like I said, where you get yourself in a wreck or you bite off more than you can chew. But it's better you run the risk of doing that than playing it safe your whole life. I don't think that is any kind of life. I don't think life is life if you play it safe. That's me. I want you to ask yourself that question, and I really want you to think about 10 years from now. Will you be happy with the decision you've made if you choose not to pursue this writing career? And then ask yourself the follow-up question, which is the meta question. Is playing it safe really what life is all about? So that's all for today, folks. That is why I think thinking like a criminal will be beneficial to you as a writer, if that's what you choose to pursue. I want you to adopt the criminal mentality. No illegal activity, not that. The criminal mentality. Now, that's going to be it for today. I will see you next time, and just think about that. Just think about what I said. Ask yourself that question. Take however long you need to answer it. Not too long, but, really sit down and think about it. Is playing it safe really what life is about? That's it. That's it for this one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I will see you next time. Peace.